Before we begin, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss stories like this. Just a quick note, this is not a real story. This is a work of fiction, based on the kind of topics and ideas viewers like you find interesting. Now, let's get into it. Scarlett lived the kind of life most people only saw in magazines or on red carpets. She had everything: fame, money, and a face known in every country in the world. When she smiled, millions smiled with her. When she walked into a room, everyone turned. But what most people didn't see, what the cameras never showed, was how heavy that kind of life could feel. Every step, every word, every friend, every relationship controlled, monitored, shaped for the perfect image. Behind the makeup, behind the designer clothes, Scarlett often felt like a puppet, a character in a never-ending movie she didn't write. She had been famous since she was a teenager. Her face had sold everything from perfumes to movies. But now in her early 30s, she was tired. Not tired in the way a person feels after a long day. Tired in the bones. Tired of pretending. Tired of being told what to say, who to date, how to act. Tired of smiling at events she didn't care about. Tired of the game. She wanted something real, something messy and alive. Something that didn't come with contracts or PR approvals. She wanted to feel something. Anything. That's when she heard about the experiment. At first, it was just a rumor, a whisper between other actors backstage. A strange idea passed around by people who had seen too much and wanted to feel again. An underground Hollywood program. Totally secret. Totally off the grid. No cameras, no agents, no press. Just one simple rule. For 30 days, 2 celebrities would switch lives completely. Not just their homes or their clothes, but everything. Their friends, their jobs, their lovers. A full swap. Like stepping into someone else's skin. It sounded insane, but also thrilling. She asked her assistant about it. Her assistant went pale and said to forget she ever mentioned it. That was the first clue this was real. The second clue came a week later when Scarlett found a black envelope in her mailbox. No name, no return address. Just a time, a location, and a single sentence. If you're ready to feel again, come alone. Scarlett stared at that envelope for hours. She could hear her manager's voice in her head. Don't do anything risky. Don't do anything weird. You're under contract for 2 more films. But something deep inside her didn't care. She was tired of being careful. That night, she told her driver to take the long way home. Halfway through, she asked him to stop. She walked the rest of the way, her mind racing. The world outside was quiet. Too quiet for Hollywood. It made her feel like something big was about to happen. At the location, an old building that looked abandoned, she was met by a man in a suit. He never gave his name. He just handed her a small tablet and said, "Read everything twice, then press agree." The screen showed a long document. It was full of legal words, but the message was clear. Once she joined, she couldn't talk about it. Not during, not after. The swap would be for 30 days. She'd be matched with another participant. Their lives would become hers. Hers would become theirs. There would be no contact with the outside world. If she wanted out, she'd have to wait until the 30 days were over. Scarlett pressed agree. She didn't know the other woman's name. All she was told was that the woman was also famous, but lived a much more private life. No social media, no big movies, just small art films and one breakout role from years ago. Scarlett would take her place completely. That meant her house, her schedule, and yes, her husband. The idea felt wild, but Scarlett told herself it was just part of the deal. Like playing a role, only this time, it was real. The next morning, Scarlett's phone was gone. Her assistant, her publicist, her stylist, all disappeared. In their place was a simple suitcase, a new phone with just one number, and a car waiting outside. She stepped in without saying a word. As they drove through the hills, she watched her old life disappear behind her. It felt strange, but not bad. Not yet. The house was beautiful but simple. Nothing flashy. It sat at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the ocean. Inside there were books, paintings, and the smell of coffee. A real home. Not like her old house, which was more like a showroom for luxury furniture. Here, everything felt lived in. The kind of place where people had real conversations, maybe even real arguments. And then she met him. The husband. He introduced himself, like they were strangers, which of course they were. But something about the way he looked at her felt too familiar, as if he had been waiting for her. His name was Dean. Tall, quiet, with eyes that didn't blink often. He wasn't handsome in the obvious Hollywood way. He was the kind of man who grew more attractive the longer you looked at him. Mysterious. Serious. Deep. At first they kept their distance. They had separate rooms, separate routines. But slowly, something began to shift. Scarlett would catch him watching her while she made tea. He would find excuses to sit near her during dinner. They didn't talk much, but the silence between them started to feel charged. Electric. One night it rained hard. The power went out. They lit candles, shared a bottle of wine, and talked. Really talked. For hours. About childhood, about regrets, about the parts of their lives they never got to show anyone. Dean told her about the time he almost quit acting. Scarlett told him about the night she cried on stage during a live interview, and no one noticed. By the time the power came back, something had changed. They weren't strangers anymore. The next few days passed like a dream. They cooked breakfast together, took long walks by the beach, watched old movies, and fell asleep on the couch. Scarlett felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not excitement. Not success. Just quiet, deep peace. But it didn't last. One morning, she found a photo on the kitchen table. It was a picture of her, not as Scarlett, but as the woman she was, pretending to be. But in the background there was a man she recognized. A director she once worked with. That didn't make sense. The photo was supposed to be from before the swap. How could he be in it? She tried to call the number on the new phone. It went straight to voicemail. The car that brought her here was gone. No driver, no staff. She checked the internet. There was nothing. Not even news. Just a strange message saying the connection was not available in this region. Her stomach turned. She wasn't just off the grid. She was cut off. That night, Dean kissed her. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't aggressive, it was slow, deep, like he had been waiting for it. And Scarlett didn't pull away. She kissed him back. They didn't speak after. Just sat on the porch watching the waves crash. But inside, her thoughts were louder than ever. Who was Dean, really? How long had he been part of this experiment? And why did it feel like he knew her too well? The next morning, Scarlett opened a drawer in the bedroom. Inside, she found a small camera, hidden, facing the bed. Her hands shook. She checked the other rooms. 2 more cameras, one in the kitchen, one in the bathroom. She hadn't seen them before, but now they were everywhere. She went to Dean, asked him directly. He didn't deny it. He just smiled, said it was part of the project, said it was for their safety. But the way he said it didn't sound like safety. It sounded like control. Scarlett started keeping notes. Every word Dean said, every strange thing that happened. She didn't know who to trust. But she knew one thing now. This wasn't just an experiment. This was something else, something much darker. She thought about walking out, just leaving. But the front gate had a code, and she didn't have it. The phone still didn't work. Her face recognition didn't unlock anything. It was like she had been erased. She stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't Scarlett anymore. Not fully. She was someone new, someone unsure, someone trapped. And Dean. Dean was changing too. He went from quiet and curious to intense and possessive. He followed her from room to room. He started asking questions. Where are you going? Who were you before this? Do you miss your old life? Scarlett didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know what was safe to say anymore. She needed a plan. But to make one, she had to play along, at least for now. The days got longer, the nights got colder, and the house that once felt like a home now felt like a cage. But she wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. She had a feeling the truth was close and she was going to find it, no matter what it cost. Scarlett started waking up with a heavy feeling in her chest. Each morning, the walls of the house felt a little closer, a little tighter. The fresh ocean air that once calmed her now carried a strange silence, like the world outside had stopped moving. Dean still acted kind, still made breakfast, still asked how she slept, but there was something in his eyes that had changed. He watched her more closely now. Every move she made, he noticed. And not in a sweet way, in a way that made her skin itch. At first, she tried to convince herself it was just the stress of the swap. Maybe he was nervous too. Maybe he didn't know how to act anymore. But then small things started to happen that she couldn't explain. A drawer she had locked would be open. A note she had hidden inside her pillow was missing. Her toothbrush was wet when she hadn't used it yet. It felt like someone was going through her things when she wasn't looking. And every time she tried to ask Dean about it, he changed the subject. He'd laugh, then say she was just being paranoid, that she should relax, that she was safe here, but she didn't feel safe anymore. One evening, while Dean was in the shower, Scarlett found his phone. She wasn't supposed to look, but something deep inside her told her she had to. She typed in a few guesses for the passcode. On the third try, it opened. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the photos. At first, nothing strange, just pictures of food, books, the view from the cliff. But then she found a folder with no name. Inside were dozens of pictures of her, not as the woman she was pretending to be, but as Scarlett. Pictures from before the swap. Paparazzi shots, red carpet events, even one from her private dressing room that no one else had access to. Her stomach dropped. How did Dean get those photos? Why would he have them? How long had he been watching her? That night she didn't sleep. She pretended to, just to avoid questions. But her mind was racing. This wasn't just a swap. It wasn't just an experiment. Dean had known who she was, all along. That meant someone else must have told him, someone inside the program. Scarlett started checking the house carefully, every corner, every wall. She found 2 more cameras, tiny ones, hidden in the air vents. She didn't touch them. She didn't want Dean to know she had found them. Instead, she started writing everything down in a small notebook she kept under the floorboard. Every time Dean asked a strange question, every time she noticed something out of place, every time the lights flickered or her reflection looked different in the mirror, she had to keep track. She had to stay sharp. Then one day, she found something that changed everything. She was cleaning the bookshelf when a small blue folder fell from behind the books. It looked old. Inside were pages and pages of printed documents, emails, contracts, reports, all with the same logo at the top, a circle with 2 masks inside it, one smiling, one crying. The file described the experiment in detail, but it wasn't just about life swapping. It was about behavior control. It was about studying how celebrities acted when all fame and structure were taken away, how far they would go when no one was watching, or when they thought no one was watching. Some reports mentioned past participants. One name was blacked out, but Scarlett recognized the photo. A famous singer who had disappeared 2 years ago, without a trace. Another page showed transcripts of private conversations, word for word. This wasn't a project about healing. It was surveillance. It was control. And maybe even blackmail. She closed the folder and put it back exactly where she found it. She didn't take anything. She couldn't risk Dean knowing she had seen it. But now she had proof. She wasn't crazy. This was bigger than she thought. Later that evening, Dean cooked dinner like nothing was wrong. He talked about a new book he wanted to read. He smiled, the same calm smile. But now, every word felt fake. Every laugh felt planned. Scarlett smiled back, but inside she was shaking. She knew she had to leave. But how? The next morning, she tried something simple. She told Dean she wanted to take a walk by herself, just to clear her head. He paused, then agreed. But as she stepped outside, she saw it. A black car, parked far, away down the road, engine running. Someone was watching. She kept walking, pretending not to notice. When she turned the corner, she picked up a small rock and marked a tree, just in case she needed to come back to this spot. She walked for an hour. No music, no phone, just the sound of birds and her own heartbeat. Then, from the trees, a voice called out. Quiet, cautious. A woman. She stepped out from the shadows. Her face looked familiar. It took Scarlett a moment to place her, a supporting actress from a TV show years ago. Then she was gone. Disappeared from the public eye, just like that singer in the file. The woman said her name was Rose. She had been part of the experiment 2 years ago. Said she escaped, but barely. She lived off the grid now. No phone, no social, no interviews, just silence. She warned Scarlett. Said if Dean was involved, things were worse than she thought. He wasn't just a participant. He was one of the creators, one of the early minds behind the experiment. He had fallen in love with a participant before. When she tried to leave, she vanished. Scarlett asked what she meant. Rose just looked at her and said, "Don't make him think you know, or you won't get out." Scarlett returned to the house in silence. Dean was waiting, smiling, as if he knew where she had gone, as if he had been tracking her. That night he brought out wine, told her he had something important to say, said he hadn't been honest with her, that he knew who she was from the start, that he watched all her movies, that he always thought they would be good together, that this swap was fate. Scarlett tried to act calm. She asked how he found her. He said it didn't matter. What mattered was that now she was here, and she belonged with him. She pretended to be touched. She leaned in, smiled, but her heart was pounding. She excused herself, went to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the floor and cried. Not because she was scared, but because she was angry. Angry at herself for falling into this. Angry at the people who created this twisted program. Angry at the world that turned pain into entertainment. Over the next few days, she changed her behavior. She acted softer. She smiled more. She asked Dean questions about his past, about his dreams, about his fears. She made him feel safe. She needed him to trust her again, all while planning her escape. She started saving pieces of information, the gate code, the way the cameras were wired, when Dean left the house and for how long. She found a small USB drive and started copying the files from the blue folder. It took hours, but she did it. She hid the drive inside an old candle, deep in the wax. One night, Dean fell asleep early. Scarlett crept into the study. She opened a locked drawer using a paperclip and found more folders. One of them was labeled Scarlett, Phase 2. Inside were notes about her habits, her voice, her body language, how to copy her, how to replace her. There was even a plan to insert a fake Scarlett back into the world while the real one stayed hidden. She felt like the air had been punched out of her lungs. This wasn't just obsession. This was identity theft on a whole other level. She ran back to her room, locked the door and sat in silence. She had one chance. If she messed it up, she'd disappear just like the others. The next morning, Dean told her they were going to a private dinner, a celebration of their time together. Scarlett smiled, said she was looking forward to it, but inside she knew what she had to do. She would use the dinner to get out. She spent the day rehearsing her words, practicing her movements, timing the lock on the side door. She moved the USB from the candle to her boot, just in case. At dinner, Dean poured her wine. He toasted to new beginnings. She raised her glass, clinked it, smiled. She told him she was finally happy, that she didn't want to go back, that this was the life she wanted. Dean leaned in, his eyes soft. He reached for her hand. That's when Scarlett excused herself, said she needed to fix her makeup. She walked calmly to the bathroom, closed the door, counted to 10, then ran, through the hallway, past the kitchen, out the side door, into the night. She didn't look back. Not yet. She ran until her legs burned, until her throat was raw, until she reached the tree she had marked, and then she waited. The black car appeared, but this time she stepped into the road. She didn't know who was inside, but it was her only chance, and she took it. The car stopped right in front of her. The engine was still running, but no one stepped out at first. For a few seconds, Scarlett just stood there, frozen in the middle of the road, wondering if she had made a mistake. Then the window rolled down. A man was inside. He looked older, maybe late 50s, sharp eyes, calm voice. He didn't ask her name. He just said, "Get in if you want to live." She didn't wait. She opened the door and sat down. He didn't ask questions. He just drove. The car moved fast, turning off the main road and heading into the woods. Scarlett didn't know where they were going, but she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. For the first few minutes, they didn't speak. She kept looking behind them, expecting another car to follow, but there was nothing. Only trees and shadows. After a while, the man spoke. He said he used to work with the people who created the experiment, said his name didn't matter, that he left the group after things got out of control. He had seen what they did to people who tried to leave, the ruined careers, the fake news stories, the sudden deaths no one could explain. Scarlett asked him why he came back. He said he was tired of watching, tired of staying quiet. He had been following her for days, waiting for the right moment. She asked if he could help her escape. He said yes, but only if she helped him too. He needed proof, real proof, something the press couldn't ignore, something big enough to bring the whole project down. Scarlett didn't hesitate. She told him about the USB drive hidden in her boot. He smiled, the first real smile she had seen in weeks. Said that might be enough, but they had to move fast. Once Dean realized she was gone, everything would change. He would activate the final phase. Scarlett didn't know what that meant, but it didn't sound good. They reached a small cabin deep in the forest. Inside, there were old computers, maps, files, and photos pinned to the walls. Faces of people Scarlett recognized. Celebrities who had disappeared, actors who had gone silent, influencers who vanished without warning. They were all connected, all part of the same program. Some had escaped. Others hadn't. The man helped Scarlett copy the files from the USB. Together they read through the documents. There were transcripts of secret conversations, payment records, hidden camera logs, and emails between people high up in the industry. Powerful names. Some of them were producers, some were politicians, all of them involved in the cover-up. Scarlett felt sick, but she also felt angry. She couldn't let them keep doing this. They uploaded the files to a secure drive online. The man told her they had to release it all at once. A single leak wouldn't be enough. The media would try to bury it. But if it went viral, if it reached the right people, there would be no way to hide it. Scarlett agreed. But first she had one more thing to do. She needed to confront Dean. The man tried to stop her, said it was too dangerous. But Scarlett was done running. She needed answers. She needed to look him in the eyes and hear the truth. So she made a plan. The man would stay behind and monitor everything. Scarlett would go back, but only for one night. Just long enough to get Dean to talk. Just long enough to record everything. She returned to the house just before sunset. Dean was outside, standing by the cliff, looking out at the ocean like he had been waiting. He didn't look surprised to see her, just smiled and said, "I knew you'd come back." Scarlett smiled too, said she missed the view. They went inside. He poured her a drink. She didn't touch it. They sat in silence for a while. Then she asked him why. Why her? Why this whole game? Dean looked at her for a long time. Then he spoke. He said the program was never about helping people. It was about control, about owning the truth. He said most people live fake lives anyway. He just gave them a place to admit it, to act on it, to fall apart in private. He said the world didn't want real stars, it wanted shadows to project its dreams on. And when those shadows stopped shining, the world moved on. Scarlett asked him if he ever loved her. Dean looked down, said he didn't know, said maybe he loved the idea of her, the version he created in his head, said the real Scarlett was stronger than he expected, and that made things harder. She was supposed to break, but she didn't. He leaned forward and said he could still fix this, said they could start over, just the two of them. No cameras, no rules, just them. Scarlett nodded, slowly, then reached into her coat and pressed a small button. A mic hidden in her collar recorded everything. Dean noticed too late. The door burst open. 2 more people rushed in. Rose was one of them. She had come back, even after what she had suffered. She said she wasn't afraid anymore. She said it was time the truth came out. Dean tried to run, but the man from the cabin had already locked the gates. Police were on their way. Everything was in motion. Scarlett walked outside, breathed in the cold air. She looked up at the sky and finally felt free. The files were released the next morning. Every news outlet covered the story, not just gossip blogs, but real reporters, real investigations. People wanted answers. Names were named. Lawsuits were filed. Careers ended overnight. The experiment was over, but the scars remained. Scarlett stayed hidden for a while. She left Hollywood, changed her name, lived in a quiet town where no one knew her face. She spent her days writing, drawing, walking through markets. No cameras, no red carpets, just peace. A year passed. One morning, a small article appeared in a quiet corner of the internet. No name, no photos. Just a short story about a woman who had lived 2 lives, and how she chose the one no one else could control. People wondered if it was her, but no one knew for sure, and that's how she wanted it.